Hi everyone. Over the next few weeks, while we do church at home, we're going to look at some of the most important moments in the Easter story from Luke's Gospel. We've also sent you some family devotions that you can read together as a family, looking at some of the same stories and some other parts that help us understand Easter better. This is our first story. We're going to see the return of the King to his capital city, Jerusalem. Jesus had been teaching and proving that he was the promised King all around the country, and now for the first time he is arriving in his capital city. How do you think a king would arrive to claim his city? Would he arrive in grand style in a limousine, walk out onto a red carpet, have bodyguards surrounding and protecting him, and people all around taking photos of him? Would he ride in a chariot down the streets lined with knights in armor? Or would he arrive in a helicopter to soldiers and tanks lining the streets and warplanes flying overhead? But when Jesus arrives, making his big entrance, he carefully chooses how to do it. He chose a donkey. He didn't even have his own donkey. He borrowed someone else's. It's almost funny, like a king arriving on someone's toy scooter instead of a stretch limo. Even though there is no red carpet rolled out to welcome him, the crowds throw their coats on the ground to make one, and they shout, "God bless the King who comes in the name of the Lord. There is peace in heaven and glory to God." This is what they meant by all their shouting. God bless the King. He comes and is sent by God himself. God's promised King is finally coming back to Jerusalem. He is home to rule. Will he be crowned? Will he retake the city from the Romans by force? Everyone was clear. The people were worshipping Jesus as God's own King. He was riding on a donkey to keep the promise from hundreds of years before that a humble king would bring peace and victory. But the religious leaders weren't happy. They wanted to silence the crowd. How dare Jesus allow them to say that he was a king, God's final king? Jesus had a very interesting response for them. He says, if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out. Imagine that, stones speaking and shouting out. Stones don't even have mouths. They can't speak. But Jesus says that he has to be praised. And if the people are told to keep quiet, then the silent, mouthless stones will have to shout out instead. That's how right it is for Jesus to be praised as God's King. We have a choice. Will we shout, sing, and worship the King? Or will we try to shut up the praise and push him back into the shadows? It may sound dramatic, but that is the choice. It's all or nothing. You can't just like him from a distance, but avoid having him in your life. It doesn't work like that. Jesus arrived in Jerusalem on a donkey. He looked ordinary and gentle. He didn't come to take control of your heart and your life by powerful force with a sword or a gun. Even though he has power over everything, he comes in weakness to save us by love and gentleness. So shout for Jesus. Throw what you have on the floor at the feet of Jesus, because he is way better than anything or anyone else. He is worth giving everything to.